Another marker of unsafe people is people that have low emotional tolerance or insight. So these are the people that invalidate, dismiss, avoid, deflect, whether that is their own emotional experiences or others' emotional experiences. The reason this perhaps kind of belongs in that unsafe category is because we as humans are inherently emotional beings, and throughout any given day we have emotions, whether we are in tune with those or not. And it is healthy to name our emotion and name what's perhaps happening in our bodies and name what we might need as a result of the emotion itself. So if I am feeling angry, it's really helpful for me to be heard. So that's the need. And it's helpful for me to connect with someone who really has the capacity to hear about my anger, and they're not dismissing it. They're not telling me that it should go away. They're not invalidating it. Now, hopefully I'm healthy enough to, and which I am, to respond in a healthy way to my anger, right? That's a whole nother topic around what we do with the emotion itself. But safe people have the ability to not only tolerate emotions in themselves, but also in other people. So if someone dismisses or minimizes or negates or tries to fix an emotion in you, that can also be a sign that they have maybe poor or lower emotional tolerance in themselves, which is really, that's just an interesting kind of side note that I wanted to offer today. Moving on, unsafety. So unsafe people deflect when a concern is brought to their attention. So they do not take ownership. If they have hurt other people, or if maybe they've behaved poorly, and that can be a marker of an unsafe person. And we're going to get into what that looks like in safety. But, if someone comes to me and they're like, Laura, you really hurt my feelings, or, this really bothered me around what you said or what you did, an appropriate response on my behalf would be to say something along the lines of, oh my gosh, I am so sorry. And I would probably do this with my hands where I'm like, covering my heart with them, just to let them know like the depth of my apology. And I'm so sorry. And how can I repair this right now? And there would be a level of me taking ownership over that mistake that was made in the relationship. Unsafe people are dishonest. So that kind of, ties into that ownership piece, but there's dishonesty there. And y'all can really deduce how that might play out in your lives. There's so many different examples around this, but dishonesty can be, and chronic dishonesty can be a marker of an unsafe person. Okay, another piece that oftentimes shows up with unsafety, avoidance of any and all hard things, whether that's a conversation, an emotion, an experience, perhaps a boundary, whatever it might be. There's a level of avoidance in unsafe people. And we as humans can all tend to avoid. But here it's really the degree to which that is happening. So again, we are all avoidant in ways as humans, and I think that we can all work on really reducing how much we avoid, but it's really the degree to which this is happening. So, people that are maybe unsafe kind of walk through life with rose-colored glasses, and I'm all for seeing the good and naming the positive things and celebrating the joy. And we also need the capacity to acknowledge that life is really hard. And a lot of people are going through a lot of hard things, and it's not really supportive if someone shares that they are going through something really hard, or perhaps got a terrible health diagnosis, what have you. But it's not really helpful for the person on the receiving end to minimize or dismiss or to avoid it. What would be more helpful is to lean in, and we're going to talk about that here in a few minutes. But yeah, there's this undercurrent of avoidance of any and all hard things, I think, with unsafety. Unsafe people are self-centered and have trouble with the give and take of a healthy relationship. And so just to take full ownership, there's been some times in my relationships, whether that's personal and professional friendships, my relationship with my husband, where I have had to be in a place of more receiving than giving, and there's room for that. What I'm talking about is more the kind of the end of the spectrum piece around people that are never able to give and consistently taking from others, or the type of person that, kind of really turns the conversation back to them and their struggles always. So this is where it might be appropriate to kind of use that language, always and never. I really hesitate to do that in the therapy space, but for the nuance of this conversation, this might be an appropriate time to use that. So these are the people that are self-centered and really can't leave room or hold space for other people well. Another piece of unsafety, have difficulty or really don't ever apologize when they have wronged someone. And having an apologetic posture and a posture that cultivates humility is really healthy for all of us. We mess up as humans, and we need to have the ability to take ownership over that and to repair. And we're going to talk about this with safety. But yeah, unsafe people don't have that ability, or they may not even see that they've done something wrong in the first place, or they try to bargain with the other person around like the wrongdoing itself and try to minimize it or poke fun at it, versus really taking ownership and hearing the other person out around the ways that they have felt wronged in the relationship. We kind of mentioned a piece of this before, but unsafe people are not self-aware and struggle with poor insight. So my staff here at Anchored knows this about me, and I feel like most people in my life do, but I really value introspection, both in myself and others. I really love increasing my own self-awareness. I challenge other people in my life to do that because I think that we can all learn and grow really at any point in our lives. And this is a piece that can be a red flag in my mind if someone is either not open to feedback or shows an unwillingness to grow or an unwillingness to become more self-aware. We all have blind spots. And if you have someone in your life that doesn't think they have blind spots, that might be a red flag for you. Okay, the last kind of bullet point that I have here is unsafe people have a posture, communication, tone of relating to the world that oftentimes is marked by unresolved trauma, whether that's in their own trauma in relational experiences and pain. So this is that piece, that trauma-informed kind of lens where unsafe people oftentimes have had really bad things happen to them. And oftentimes that doesn't just show up out of nowhere. It can be a result of going through relational trauma, but that's still not an excuse to behave poorly or to mistreat other people. But there's a lack of willingness to work on the pain. And that really can wreak havoc on their lives. And so unsafe people have an unwillingness to really resolve the pain and suffering perhaps that they have been through versus a willingness to lean in. So those are my thoughts around what makes someone unsafe. So that poor communication, poor boundaries, lack of humility, lack of perhaps an apology when they've wronged someone, lack of self-awareness, lack of introspection, lack of insight, dishonesty, avoidance of any and all hard things, deflection, poor emotional kind of capacity or low emotional capacity, and then that piece around that unresolved trauma that they're maybe not actively working to heal. So those are my thoughts on unsafety.